where it's trying to measure. I mean, if it's the case that we've measured 50,000 people who tried dieting and they all failed, or vast number have failed, probably we shouldn't do what they did. So you're trying to learn from the data. What are the success stories and failures from people who've tried to change? And, so there's lifestyle issues. And I think another part of it that's important is that we come in different shapes. So if you're a young woman looking at a fashion magazine or watching teen videos or TikToks and everybody is super slender, if you don't happen to have that body type and you're trying to starve yourself to look like the people you see on TV, or on, kids don't watch TV, to see on your phone, that's a problem, because some people are thicker by their body frame, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, if you look at the art from centuries past, the women were thought more attractive to be fuller. So people can be mixed up by trying to look like someone else. So that's an issue. So I don't think so. So we're looking for metabolic health. When you get metabolic health, what size do you get to? And I remember you posted a picture once of you with one of your relatives, a niece maybe, and you both look the same. Well, there's a genetics. You have a certain shape that seems natural. And it's true, we can gain weight or lose weight depending on different circumstances. But I think it's a discovery process. Every person is different. And that's sort of what I want to get into in a bit, that people shouldn't be overwhelmed by signals they get from society that they've got to be super slender like a model or big and buff like a weightlifter. I mean, what's natural for people?
Yeah, that's right. The social media and the pressure that we get there, it can be actually pretty dangerous. But let me ask you something. You actually mentioned, and I want to learn more a little bit about this biochemical individuality. And I would like to learn a little bit more of what is that, and why is that matter for people who are actually interested in improving their health? How is related? Because I myself don't know anything about that subject, and I would like to learn more about that.
So a background on this is part of the critics of a lot of the status quo in medicine looked at the discovery of DNA and genetics as drew everyone into genetics, that genetics can cure cancer. Genetics, we can find out why people are obese. That's all in their genes. And so there's this huge move into genetics. But the separate set of scientists looked at metabolism. And that's basically, how the body works, how your mitochondria works, your internal biochemistry. And obviously genetics are the code for the instructions for how we're assembled or grown, but it's not how we actually operate. Once you get everything put together, it doesn't tell you how things operate. So that's a general background. Let me try and share a screen and see what kind of technological disaster this brings to us. I'm going to try and share the next screen there. And so now you should see the screen up.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So this, on the normalnutrition.substack is where I've got the articles that we've been discussing and some links to our earlier discussions. Here is this post that we're drawing from on Emily Oster, and then in Today, they have an overview of the journal article that we're referencing on the metabolic individualism. But on the issue of biochemistry, did that bring the second screen up? No. Here we go.
Yep.
Now it should be there. So on the issue of biochemistry, a lot of popular books on the importance of metabolic health were published in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And among the leaders in this field is Roger J. Williams, research biochemist at University of Texas. So he wrote Nutrition in a Nutshell, You Are Extraordinary, Nutrition Against Disease, The Wonderful World Within You. He published a whole bunch of papers, and he was, leading in the field. And his textbook, Biochemical Individuality, still available in print on Amazon. and there's a page with more about his background. And also, by the way, another Adele Davis was a popular writer on this, and I have this in this. The next article will be about this. Her book, Let's Get Well. I just got that. And there's an interview with her from 1969 where she's saying, look, people are eating the wrong foods, and much mental illness and physical illness is because people are eating foods that are over processed and lack nutrients. And people are told not to eat eggs or milk, but for a lot of people, that's for eggs are good for almost everyone, milk for people that aren't allergic. Anyway, so we're different inside. We look different. And guess what? Our internal biochemistry is different. We learn different. That's why classrooms, some people, a class that works great for some people doesn't for others. All these things are very different. And so part of it is understanding that. And then we sort of go on a search to figure out what works best for us. I'm going to pull off the screen here. If I can figure out how to do that. Stop sharing.
It's actually very interesting, and I wanted to ask you, because as we talked so much about this interesting theory, of course, I'm sure that most of the listeners are interested to actually learn more about this and do their own research if they have their time. Is there any other books or authors that you'd like to recommend talking about this energy balance? Or if I have, maybe, I know that everybody, due to time constraints, sometimes it's difficult to pull that time out, but if
Right.
it were for one book that you have to choose, what would be that one, and why would you recommend that one?
So this sort of fits into our how different we are. The book that's best is the book people read and appreciate and understand. People could suffer through a book they find really bad, but I'll put images of some of these books up. But Rob Wolf has a book called Wired to Eat. And I've been reading that and recommended that to a friend. Wolf's sense of humor is not for everyone, so some people might be put off for that. Ben Bickman's book, Why We Get Sick, to me is fascinating. And he's a high-level research biochemist, and he's an insulin doctor. So insulin is at the center of his work. I think I might recommend watching some video presentations by these authors. Even though their spoken word is different from the written word, you get a sense of whether someone's appealing to you. For the history of this, the Nina Teicholz's book, Big Fat Surprise, is 10 years of journalistic research into the history of the science and the public policy. She's got a number of online presentations, and she is interesting to me, and her presentations are thoughtful. So I'd recommend her videos. We'll put some links on these and people can watch. I just watched a video by Dr. Robert Lustig, and he's not a low carb guy. He's indifferent to whether it's low carbs or low fat, but he does have a list of like 7 things that go wrong with people, the hateful eight things. And in insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome is one of those. He focuses on sugar, and particularly fructose, as being the core of the problem for most people. But again, he's published articles, research, and so you can watch him, and he may be the wrong person for some people, but the right for others.
Right. No, thank you so much. This is just great, and I learned something that we always think we know so much, but we know so little, right? I always like to say, and it's always good to have somebody who did this research and gave some insights that I'm sure everybody can at least draw one sentence that brings some value to them. So thank you so much for that. It was really interesting, and I look forward to see the links for the books.
Someone suggested the mountain of knowledge metaphor and I started on this. You learn all this stuff, and you think you know it all. And then you start down the other side of the mountain because you learn more and more and learn that you know less and less. So I'm trying to figure out what works for me. And I'm really not, again, I lost over 40 pounds over 2020. I think I know why, but I'm not entirely sure. It might be because I changed this and that. So we're trying to figure out what works for each of us. I might recommend, David Unwin is a British general practitioner, I'll have a link to him. He talks about how, his patients have been getting heavier and heavier and heavier over decades. And then he tells the story of one of his patients who was avoiding him. She stopped taking her medications, and he finally tracked her down and brought her in, and he didn't recognize her because she'd lost so much weight. And she wouldn't tell him why. And and it was because she'd lost weight by reducing carbohydrates, basically the Banting diet, from the 1860s. You don't eat carbs, you lose weight. And then he tried, and he turns out the diabetes.uk.com, I think it is. There's two. There's all these people who are sharing ideas of how to lose weight, and they basically say, don't tell your doctor, because your doctor is going to tell you that keto's. And I had a home doctor visit from my Aetna Medicare here just earlier this week. And I told him I'd lost 40 pounds and had him look at my blood tests, and by reducing carbohydrates, and he launched into a lecture or a discussion of why carbohydrates were key. You had to eat a lot of carbohydrates, 3 30-gram meals a day, 3 snacks a day. The brain can only metabolize glucose. You've got to have carbohydrates. And, I listened. He's a doctor, and but he was overweight. And I wonder if he was metabolically healthy. I wonder if that was even on his radar screen. And he's telling me he's seen that my blood work is good. And it used to be not so good. My blood glucose was 111, which isn't terrible, but that's pre-diabetic. And he said that was right on target. I mean, he might have misunderstood what I said. And I didn't want to browbeat him, although the room was littered with books on low carb and keto. So he never mentioned any of that. Anyway, but so everyone has their own road to travel, and we tend to trust our doctors if we know them well. And I've not had a lot of experience with doctors, but anyway, so everyone's got to find their own path. This isn't medical advice. It's just saying, don't diet, but research nutrition. Find out your internal biochemistry. Find out what works for you.
Absolutely. And, I always like to say doctors are they studied so many years for something. They're there to let us know what's working and not. But again, as you mentioned, and I want to stress this as well for the listener, that's not what we're trying to do here to give medical advice. It's just, we know there's a lot of research out there, but with these small podcasts, we're just trying to give some insights for people who maybe don't have that time, and they can actually draw from every podcast, even if it's just one sentence that they can apply and it works for them, then I guess we're happy with that. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. And I really appreciate for this insight. It was actually great. And again, I look forward to see the links to the video and learn more about this.
Okay, thank you very much, Marina. Good to talk, and I look forward to our next discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.